Elizabeth in the back. So if you are 3 years old up to 5th grade, go back there. Just go, yeah. I'm glad you came up here. That's so great. But now, go back there. Go to see Miss Hillary and Miss Elizabeth. Miss Debbie. And if you are a youth, go with Stephanie Drum and her team. All right. One more. I was thinking about it. All right, now we can speak freely. So how is Lent going? Has anybody achieved self-actualization? Have you done it? Anyone? Well, if you have to ask, Bill, what self-actualization is, you have not attained it. Well, I am grateful. I am grateful that you all are here. Lent is this time of year we do get to reflect, and Garrett's going to come up tonight and help us do that in some really meaningful ways with the help of Jeremy Taylor and our Lord Jesus Christ. But I always, when we get together, which we don't often do as a parish, it's kind of hard to get everybody in a room and across our 5 services. But I just want to let you know a couple things that I think you may want to be aware of at St. Alban's that can sometimes get missed in the mix and swirl of things. One thing is that every month, the first Sunday of the month, we invite folks to bring meals that they've made at home, and then we freeze them and we put them in the freezer back here in our kitchen. And this is something that allows us every month to be able to bless folks who have had babies or who have gotten out of the hospital or whatever is going on. So if you, any first Sunday of the month, which is coming up, March 1st, this coming Sunday, in the Welcome Center, there'll be somebody there who can pick up a meal from you. We do ask that you write your name, contact info, and ingredients on like an index card that you tape to it so that if people have allergies or if somebody gets sick, we can sue you. Those, we just need to know if we have questions, or maybe we can't read your handwriting and we don't know if it says pecans or lentils, and somebody's got a nut allergy. We got to call and find out, did you mean to write pecans or lentils? So, yeah, that's what we ask for if you are able to do that on the first Sunday of the month, and that which is coming up. Valda McWhirter. Anybody know anyone who is in college or grad school? Yes. Michael Larson and the Zimmerman family, Tracy and the Kellys have all benefited from this. There was a lady named Valda McWhirter at a church that doesn't exist anymore in Gatesville. And when that church closed, a scholarship fund that had been started by her in her name, those assets came to St. Albans by the intervention of the Holy Spirit and Jeff Fisher, who is our former rector, now bishop. And so what that means is St. Albans, it used to be if you go to college, you're a St. Albans member, you would get $1,000 a semester, or a year, sorry. And then, but there weren't enough college students and the assets were growing. We weren't giving away enough money, so they added grad students to it. If you go to any sort of trade school program, anything after high school, or a master's degree, or an undergraduate degree, you can apply to the scholarship. You have to be a confirmed member of St. Albans in good standing, and you have to answer some very easy questions, and then the vestry votes, and you get the scholarship awards. They change year to year. They're always at least $1,000, but most years they've been $3,000 a year for 4 years of undergrad or 3 years of high school. So you have to be a confirmed member of St. Albans. So if you know somebody who's like a high school junior and is not confirmed, start planning. And you want them to get confirmed because they love our Lord Jesus Christ. Totally. And affirm the faith that's been handed down from the apostles. But assuming they already do all those things, and you're like, I don't need to get confirmed. I love Jesus. Well, no, you don't need to get confirmed. And yes, you do love Jesus. But Valda McWhirter, she wants you to get confirmed if you want to apply for that scholarship. So that is that, and applications are due April 1st, and if you have any questions, feel free to check, ask, whatever you want. The other thing that I want to let you know is that Primetime Classics is coming up with an event on the 28th, which is like in 3 days, Saturday. at 1 to 3 p.m. right here. So if you just don't leave tonight, just stay here through Saturday. You'll be early. You can bring cookies. Primetime Classics is for those 50-ish plus. And everybody gets together and plans out what we're going to do what you are going to do. I'm not in that yet. I will be soon, but not there yet. Finally, we have a guy named David Enlow, who is a fantastic organist coming as part of our Sacred Arts concert series. He'll be here this Sunday at 4 p.m. Not only will he be playing the works of Bach, Mozart, Schumann, Vierne, Whitlock, he'll also improvise on audience-submitted themes. So I know I'm going to do English rock of the 70s and see what he comes up with. But audience-submitted themes, he also has the honor or ignominy of having played, probably honor, of having played the organ for Eugene and Sharon Lavery's wedding. So there you go. Don't let that make you think he's like not a big deal. He's a very big deal, David Enlow, and so we're grateful to have him here. So that's coming up this Sunday at 4 p.m. Garrett, is there anything else that's for the good of the order? Oh yeah. If you want to bring soup, we are just the cusp of soup threshold needed for this event tonight. So if you haven't signed up and want to sign up, you can either do so by scanning the QR code behind me, or you can write your information and pick a date and a time or date on the poster board. You can't miss it as you leave the parish hall. It's there in the hallway right out there. So, Garrett, please come tell us about Lent. And please, everybody, give Garrett a big round of applause.
This is on, Robert? Yes? Okay, I can hear myself now. Good. Well, tonight we're kicking off this series of very present help, death, hope, and what to do when life gets hard. So we're going to talk about a couple things today, a little bit about death, but mainly kind of the hard part, what to do when life gets hard. So I first kind of want to kick it off by asking you about your stuff, with an asterisk next to stuff. I want to hear about your stuff, because many of us I'm thinking, let me talk about my life, and you tell me if this sounds like your life. I have accumulated things over the years that I kind of don't need anymore, and I always want to clean out my garage, or I'm going to get back into a hobby that I picked up. For instance, I have a lot of old beer brewing equipment that I dropped off at a friend's house this week, so actually, let's clap for that. I gave it to a friend. That's right. I got rid of it. I'm saved. But no, so what to do with all our stuff? So we have this stuff that we pick up kind of as life goes on. If you've lived, how many of y'all have had the pleasure of living in one place, just one place, like longer than 15 years? Raise your hand. Yeah. Y'all know what stuff is, especially when you've been like in one single place. Even if you've been in a place for 2 years, you just accumulate things. And so there's this stuff that we accumulate that's like actual kind of physical things, old hobbies like what we were talking about, the pair of golf clubs that you never use. And then there's other stuff that we pick up that feels more kind of like real stuff, like the heavy things that we pick up, like living in a town for a little too long and feeling the need to move on. And I feel this when I go back to my hometown and I see people that I haven't seen in a really long time, that maybe people I wasn't exactly the best person to at points in my life. And I'm like, it's good that I don't live at home anymore, actually. But the heavy things that we carry is stuff as well. Things like sicknesses, pain, death, frustration. And moving doesn't always get rid of everything. And so I want to show you some examples of, the one on the right actually is me, the last time I moved, this F2, no. These cars are doing a lot of work. I don't actually know, someone can tell me what kind of car this is, interesting. This like F-250, that's a Ford. Look at that right there. It has all sorts of luggage and chairs and sofas, and then we have other stuff. So this can kind of, in my mind, this is what my life can feel like when I get to Lent. And this is what it can kind of feel like just on really any given month of the year, that I'm in a 4-cylinder little car trying my best, and I've got the weight of the world maybe upon my shoulders. But I have a question for you that I kind of want to ask here at this point. So number one, have any of y'all moved recently? I want to raise your hand. Okay, we have some. What are some of the things, and you can shout these things out. It can be your thing, but I especially love these things that belong to people you live with, that you really wish might go away in a move. And you don't have to look at this person if you're shouting something out, but give me a hand raise. We don't need a mic for this. Yes. Speakers from the 70s. We're getting specific. Okay. Very good. Massive speakers, Jenna. All books. That's a hot take. Yeah. Yeah. I got rid of a lot of books on our last move, so I get that. What is, yes?
My husband's
Bowling ball. Your husband's, that was very, I was going to say, Greg is not here, everyone. Did it have like his name on it and things like that, or, okay. Yeah. What else? What are the things you find that you're moving with that you wish you could leave somewhere else? Yeah. Plastic bags full of stuffed animals. Okay, very good. Yeah. Plastic bags full of, yeah. We have an entire cabinet in our kitchen dedicated to HEV bags for when we forget to bring our normal ones, because I care about the earth. What? Last one, yes. Legos. Bring them to me. Aaron loves Legos. I'll give them to him. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So, wait, did I hear one more? Good. This one I like a lot because it's more of an RV that I feel like an RV is a downsizing thing, or you get into an RV to kind of get away from all of your stuff, and then you just have everything on top of the RV. I actually really, really love this photo. Board games, like I said, golf clubs, books, the bags that we carry can feel really numerous and can weigh us down, whether it's actual stuff or whether it's stuff that just feels really heavy. The things that we carry, we can't seem to keep track of them all the time. We don't know where we are going, we don't know what we're doing, and we don't know how we're going to get there sometimes, and at the same time, you're carrying all these things. When he visited Waco in October, Rowan Williams was our former Archbishop of Canterbury, came here, preached, it was good times. He was giving a talk at another space, and he talked about how in England, churches have become lots of different things, and especially where we live, in Texas, in the South, in the Bible Belt, churches exist, and like people still kind of are here for a lot of things. Like y'all, getting this many people in a room in an Episcopal church in North America on a Wednesday night is an insane thing, so thank you for doing that, number one. But he was talking about how churches have lost and now refound in some ways their availability to take on these bags, to take on the things that we carry. He talked about church in his kind of ideal world. He was asked the question, where does church kind of fit in with many people that are now not becoming or moving away from religion, or not wanting to really be a part of a church in a way that people did in the past? And he said that the church still exists and should exist as this place where people are able to take the stuff that they can't take anywhere else, where people are able to take the stuff that they can't take anywhere else. And I think about that, and I think about it in this photo, but especially I think about it during Lent, when we're trying to think about the stuff that we're carrying. And if you're not thinking about it, you might come to church and hear about the stuff that everyone else is carrying, like in the Great Litany that was chanted on Sunday, or in the prayers that we say that are pretty specific. So I want to show this quick video. This is from the Griswold's family's vacation, and it's gonna show kind of what happens when you are attaching bags to the top of an old vehicle here.
No, I forgot something. Wally World, here we come.
There they go. This is my favorite. Come on. Oh, actually, this is my favorite.
She's not fine, Clark. She's dead.
So that last one actually makes me laugh a whole lot. And when I was prepping today, I had like a full 10 minutes in my office where I was just laughing at that scene. But all of these bags are flying everywhere in National Lampoon's The Vacation with Clark Griswold and his family. And it's kind of like they're wanting to go out on this great grand adventure and this great grand road trip. But all of the stuff is always attached, and it's always kind of falling off or knocking around and weighing them down. And when we come to Lent, we get a chance to kind of look at the stuff that we have. We get a chance to look at kind of the stuff in a mirror, or we get to write it out and put it in the prayer boxes, or there's just kind of a closeness maybe to the stuff that we're carrying that we don't always get at other parts of the year. And so I want to start with what is Lent. This question comes up every year for Aaron and I, and maybe for you too. And Lent, for many folks, it's like giving up carbonated beverages for a few weeks. It will improve my relationship with God. And that could be Lent for you. So I don't want to denigrate that. But it is this time of year in the Christian calendar where we come and we start to look at all of the stuff, to look at what we are carrying, and to start to reassess. And sometimes that means leaving things. That means knocking things off of the car. It means picking things up. Different Lent practices look different for different people. But most of the time, it means that we are trying to look life in the face, and that we are trying to look at ourselves in a mirror and to be honest with ourselves, even if it's just for a few weeks. The questions that come up the most in Lent are generally these ones for me. Why is there so much death, especially after Ash Wednesday? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. I'm seeing like that was in our children's advertisement for like what they're going and talking about now. I had someone ask me, what are these things and why are you teaching my children about them? Which is a fair and good question. And am I supposed to feel bad when I go to church? I want to read you this excerpt from Jeremy Taylor, this 17th century man. He wrote a book about holy living and holy dying. It's a pretty good book. But to this first question, why is there so much death? It can feel kind of like this maybe at times. He says this, considering the miseries of a man's life. As our life is very short, so it is very miserable. And therefore it is well that it is short. God, in pity to mankind, lest his burden should be insupportable and his nature be an intolerable load, hath reduced our state of misery to something very, very brief. And the greater our misery is, the less it is to last. And he goes on and on about how miserable and how short life is. And we laugh about it. And if you caught me on a random Wednesday and asked, how are you doing, and then got kind of underneath that, I might say, no, there's a lot going on, and I really wish I could do something else. Maybe not die, like Jeremy Taylor. The shortness, the briefness of my life is not a comfort to me necessarily. But somebody asks, why is there so much death? It's part of this mirror. It's part of life. I think it's Lent brings us to this place where we acknowledge death and we acknowledge that it's a part of life and a natural part of life. Prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. What are these kind of traditional practices that we associate with Lent? And this behind me is from a children's book, actually. It's almost like a children's pamphlet that I took a picture of one time. And so we've got Jesus, "Get thee hence, Satan," which is, I'm sure, how you all pray and talk to people. We have prayer as our weapon, the sword and shield. This boy wearing husky clothes from JCPenney eating a lot, and this guy over here. We have almsgiving to the poor box, and then somebody else trying on hats. Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving are these traditional kind of things, not necessarily to make you feel like a better person. They're to get us in touch with our own humanity. They're to get us closer to God and to get us closer, this is important, to the people that God loves as well. The practices traditionally that are associated with Lent are not this like whip to beat yourself with, but it gets us closer to humanity and gets us closer to God. And this last question, am I supposed to feel bad on Sunday? I'm hearing these and thous at church. Maybe I should start to be feeling bad. No, that's not the case. Well, if you have done bad things, maybe we should talk. But overall, are you supposed to feel bad when you're coming to church in Lent? No. Like I said, we're trying to get in touch with our humanity. We are trying to get in touch with the closeness of God and the parts of our life that can feel broken beyond repair. The parts of our life where we start to recognize that there is a need. And now we're getting to the title, the parts of our lives where we start to recognize that help might be out there, and help actually is close. This comic book, I'm a big Calvin and Hobbes fan. I don't know if you guys, yeah, okay, good. We've got a lot of fans. I need to get a series of them. So I grew up reading Calvin and Hobbes over my breakfast table, and my books at home are just spattered with like Fruit Loops and whatever else we had at home. But this comic I like the most, for Lent especially. Calvin says, do you believe in the devil, the supreme human being dedicated to temptation, corruption, and the destruction of man? And Hobbes, his tiger, says, I'm not sure man needs the help. And Calvin says, you just can't talk to animals about these things. So it is a great comic, and it is a great little line in my mind that kind of speaks to how we do a decent job of messing things up ourselves. I don't need more help messing up my life. I do a very good job of that myself. I don't need more help messing up other people's lives. I do a very good job of that by myself. And this taps so much into the human experience of just how we generally feel about how we're doing. If you feel like you can't get something right, our mortality becomes frightening. And the things that we do become frightening. The ways in which we are hurt by others and the ways in which we hurt other people becomes frightening. Those words, remember that you are dust and to dust you shall return, can look and feel very frightening. So, what does help look like? The title of this series comes from Psalm 46. I know you Psalm 46 heads out there totally were just like immediately knew what this class was going to be about. But the first two verses in this psalm say this: God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth be moved and the mountains be toppled into the depths of the sea. It goes on and on to talk on and on for like 8 verses or so. And primarily it's talking about how God will care for the people of Israel despite natural disasters, despite people kind of coming against them. It's this very kind of classic way of putting people's trust in God. But this first line, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Those words, they stand out not just to me. I have talked to other people too about how these words can be even a comfortable word. We hear the comfortable words on a Sunday after the prayers, and as the priest is going down giving the comfortable words, these words from Scripture that are meant to comfort us. But this Psalm 46 gets said at different times throughout the year. The time that you might remember it is if you've been to the Easter Vigil on Saturday, the night before Easter. The story from Genesis and the flood is read, and immediately after that, this psalm is either said or sung. And so chaos, this flood, chaos, this fear, chaos, people doing bad things, and troubling things happening in our world is responded to with this psalm, Psalm 46. Lent gives us this moment where we are asked, through fasting, through prayer, through almsgiving, to look at our own troubled things, our own troubled stuff, the stuff that we are carrying. Lent brings up these themes of wandering in the wilderness, of looking for God, of finding God, and of walking alongside Christ, just as he walked as well. So the question then becomes, where are we actually getting any help? And I want to use this painting. We'll zoom in close, and we'll talk a little bit about this painting. Has anyone seen this painting before? This is called The Valley of Tears by Gustave Doré. It's a late 19th century painting, and it's a little hard to see. We're going to zoom in just a minute on the next slide. But we have Jesus up here in the background, actually. He's holding a cross, and he seems to be kind of beckoning these people towards him. If you see down here, these people, they don't look like they're having too much fun. We have a king, somebody with a crown on. We have like a knight-looking like person with a cross on his chest. This painting was inspired by Matthew 11:28, which actually is part of the comfortable words that you hear on Sunday morning. Come to me, all of you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So it depicts all of these people experiencing very intense forms of suffering. You can see on the right side, that's that lower part, and then the top part is the middle, people lying down, crawling, trying to get close to Jesus. This figure of Christ who is carrying his cross and telling them that he is there and to come follow him. It's really interesting, too, if we zoom back out, this barren kind of landscape that they find themselves in. It's a valley. I grew up in a valley, in a little valley, and if you grew up in a valley, you might know that's where a lot of the good soil kind of goes over time. And there's generally a lot of trees, and maybe a river, and lots of life. But there is not so much life in this valley. There's actually a dead tree on the left side, and there's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. This was one of a number of really large paintings that Doré did for an illustration of the Bible that was set up in London for people to see. And it was open for something like 30 years at this exhibit. And hundreds of thousands of people would have seen these pictures, these paintings. They came to the United States, and then they were lost and found in the 1940s in a warehouse in Manhattan. Just wild stuff here. So they found these paintings. Most of them are back in France now. But it is just a very striking image of Christ, yes, being in the background, and typically he's a little bit in the foreground. But so much of the suffering and so much of the things that these people are carrying, some of them are actually carrying bags. Some of them are carrying children. Some of them are carrying sick people, older folks, beckoning, and Christ beckoning them towards. And I find this image striking at the beginning of Lent. I find it striking in the sense that a very present help in trouble being a phrase that I'm latching onto, and it getting played out in this way in particular. What I have next kind of for us, one thing I like doing at Lent soup suppers and at Advent dinner and discussions, and this might make you might need to just get out of the room now, are some table questions for you guys. And then we'll come back together. I know. We're at an Episcopal church. You don't want to talk to your neighbor, but I think it's actually a good thing. So feel free, work through these 3 questions with a table. I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to give us probably a good 10 minutes or so. And then I want to kind of hear from y'all, from what you heard at the table, and maybe any other kind of reflections before we continue for the next couple slides after this. So I'll let you break out, and I'll call us back together in just a minute. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back together You might be in the middle of a conversation, and that's okay. But I want to just open it up. What are some things, and we can bounce around on the questions, what are some things that came up at the table we were at? Doesn't have to be something you said, but maybe even something you heard from someone else. Robert has a floating mic, and so out your friends and neighbors right now, especially for number 2. I want to know. No. What are some things that came up at y'all's tables during these conversations? Bueller.
Lots of people watching The Chosen.
Watching The Chosen? Okay. Yeah. I'll prep with this. In this first question, we found, at least at the table that I was at, you kind of fell under the type of person in Lent that's like, oh, I want to take on a whole lot of things, and I want to like finally become the person that I have always wanted to become. And then there's other people that are like, I'd like to cut certain things out. And I feel like there's kind of these two people that approach Lent. And you're either like a pick things up, and then, well, I'm a pick things up person. And then I find out the first week that I picked too much up and I need to stop doing the things and just choose one of those things. Or you are a give stuff up type of person, whether it's chocolate, I don't know, whatever, like those kinds of approaches. But yeah, I want to know what came up at y'all's tables, if you feel comfortable enough to share.
How meaningful for comfortable words are there in the service?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot too, how meaningful the comfortable words are in the service. I'll talk a little bit about that right now. Do you guys know, when I didn't kind of talk about it a ton here, but when I say comfortable words, I'm talking about that point in the service right after we say the confession. So if you're in the church, you're kneeling, and if you're at the 9:10, we're usually standing. And we've said the confession, and we've said out loud, or at least maybe thought about some of the ways in which the things we've done and left undone to people around us. And then these words of Scripture are said by the priest as they walk down the aisle. Those words were put in the prayer book originally. I don't know about you, but after the confession, sometimes I can feel a little like, ooh, okay, that's a lot. I kind of feel like a little worm at this point in my time in the service, and I need something to remind me of the care and of the mercy and grace that God gives us. And that's why the words are in there. Not all of them have to be read. There's 4 that we read, and there's 4 kind of traditionally that are a part of that. But especially that first one, come unto me, all of you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my burden is light. Those ones in particular stood out. But we talked at our table a lot about just different comfortable words and where they came from. We talked about how I didn't even know this, after 9/11 apparently, Psalm 46 was a psalm that got picked up in a lot of churches. I heard this at my table, so I'm hoping that this is true, actually. I was just lied to. But it was a psalm that got picked up, and it is a lot about kind of a national identity type of psalm, but care and hope that God would care for us. Yeah. I am curious. Comfortable words? Did anyone else talk about that at their tables? Yeah, some of us here. Number 2, I'm always curious where people go when they are needing help, and making you talk about where you go when you need help in front of people you kind of know was an experiment. My table actually, we skipped that question, so I don't know, and that's on my end. But as we kind of continue to talk about these things, oh, Marilee, yeah. You talked about it? What'd you talk about in number 2? Yeah.
Well, I talked about how in the past few months, I've needed help, and I came to my St. Alban's family.
Oh. Yeah. Marilee said in the past couple of months, I needed help, and I came to my St. Albans family, and they provided for me, which, yeah, thanks for saying that, Marilee. And therapy.
I just talk about how it's really helpful to have a therapist, so that every week I can go and talk to someone who actually wants to listen to all my problems and doesn't want me to ask her about any of hers. And that is really helpful to have that person in my life, to be able to just say, this is what's going on, and to get perspective from someone who's just completely outside of my life.
Yeah.
and can look more objectively at my own family or whatever things
Sure.
that I'm thinking through. And there's so many things in life where I thought there was something that I have dealt with and I moved on from.
Sure.
And so I'll be talking about my life and saying the thing, and this is the thing, and she'll say, like, pause, like, rewind it, like, kind of drill down here, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's stuff that I thought I had
Yeah.
dealt with that
Yeah.
cavity, drilled it out, filled it, but turns out there's more.
Yeah.
There's more in there to be explored. So that's, and life is so fast, sometimes there's moments you don't even realize that you need help.
Yeah.
And so having that, and whether that's therapy or whether that's church or all of the above and other places, having places in your life that sort of force you to slow down. And one of the things I love about Lent is the way we take out that improvisational organ piece at the end of the gospel reading before the sermon. There's like just silence, and there's more silence in the services. And I think that, I mean, that's obviously intentional, but having those places where you're kind of made to sit with discomfort a little bit.
Yeah.
Because so much of life is numbing and pushing discomfort away.
Yeah.
So you never even realize you need help because you don't allow yourself to feel the hurt or the pain or the discomfort or whatever. So that's my reflection on that. So therapy.
Therapy. Very
And
good.
prayers.
And prayers. Yeah. I was talking to someone, my therapist, about friendship and how, like, we do not have nearly as many close connections in the world like we do numb, and we have these phones, and we are connected with people over in digital ways now, and like the face-to-face time. Really, what we're doing here tonight, even like sitting around, even with people that you know, maybe you know well, but even some people that you don't know very well, ends up being just this thing that can really give us life. And like going somewhere for help doesn't necessarily mean or look like the ways we might think it does. Sometimes it's just being around somebody and having someone to talk to about nothing, but just having this human time together and watching someone else's face and seeing their reactions and being in the same room with them. Yeah. So anyway, that's our plug for therapy, apparently, Aaron and Garrett. One thing that's interesting, I will say this, as priests, we are allowed to meet with people about one issue kind of 3 times and then like find someone else for them to talk to. Not in a bad way, but just in a way that's like, I'm not a social worker. Aaron and I are not therapists. We can do certain things, but we can't do everything. And I'm not talking about anyone in particular here, but it is just an interesting and nice kind of guardrail. At least I find it a nice guardrail to know my lane, really, and to know what I can talk about and what I can't talk about. But as we kind of continue with Lent, I want to look at this collect, which is the collect that's appointed for the 3rd Sunday in Lent. And I want to say just kind of a few things as we get closer to finishing now. Almighty God, who seest that we have no power of ourselves to help ourselves, keep us both outwardly in our bodies and inwardly in our souls, that we may be defended from all adversities which may happen to the body, and from all evil thoughts, which may assault and hurt the soul. These things that we kind of carry, the bags that are on our car, the bags, the things, the stuff, some of that stuff not only can hurt us like physically and it's hard as we go on, we start to show that we age and that kind of thing. But there are things that also can hurt us inwardly as well that we do not get to give oxygen to. And Lent is a time in which we can do that, and we can do that in a way that's not going to be shameful or full of guilt, but in a way that is asking for help. Lent lets us come to this place to be able to say we have no power of ourselves to help ourselves. And this is part of the setup. It's part of starting to look at these things close up, starting to look at ourselves kind of in the mirror, and maybe, just maybe, trying to find that we do have a very present help. So I kind of want to, I'll jump to any questions or comments that y'all have about anything that's kind of been said tonight. And if we do not have any questions or comments, I'll talk about kind of where we're going in the next bit. Yeah, Carol.
To either give something up or take something on.
Yeah.
Depending upon your life and your circumstances, sometimes that seems like a burden and
Yeah.
something that you really can't bring yourself to do.
Yeah, to even choosing how to give it up and how to step forward. Yeah, I think that you have to do that you have to have something that you give up or take on. In some ways, grates against the spirit of Lent because there's not or even just talking about it with someone else even grates against kind of the spirit of reflection and prayer and that kind of thing. I think that's where I kind of fall back to those three things: fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. As things that, if I don't feel like I even have the capacity to be able to choose what I can do, at least I have other people, other Christians throughout history and in the tradition that have talked and written about and kind of can point me towards the way. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
My fellow Episcopalians, we are the only body in Christendom that prays that prayer. And it is bold of Thomas Cranmer to write that prayer and to put that in the prayer book. And I don't even know if you guys have ever thought about how ridiculously countercultural and how maybe you don't even agree with it, but you say it. How many of you believe that you have no power in yourself to help yourself? That is step 1 of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And almost nobody outside of the recovery movement believes that for a second. Everybody else thinks that they do have power in themselves to help themselves, at least on some level. And so this is an audacious ask on Lent 3 to get us to pray that. But it is echoed in Psalm 51. It's echoed in many places in Scripture, but it's something that's so... Jesus is often seen as just the cheerleader to help us do the things that we do, and he's sort of the wind in our sails, but we're the one, driving the boat, sailing the boat. So I don't know. I love that it recognizes both what's going on, not just outwardly, externally, physically, but also internally, and what assaults and hurts the soul.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and that recognizes why it's so hard for us to help ourselves. But it just is this attitude of complete dependence on God. So to the extent that Lent is ever something that is filling your ego, either through giving up or taking on, I'm not saying it's bad, because ultimately your ego will always get checked by life and the world and the things that your adversities and evil thoughts and all those sorts of things. But this to me is a great relief, because it frees me from the lie that the world often tells me, and that I would like to believe in myself, that I can help myself. Because if it's up to me, then it's up to me, and that's a burden that I carry. And it's exhausting and ultimately sort of futile. So that to me always brings me crashing down to earth, but I feel a lot safer with my feet on the ground than I did when I was trying to flap my wings and fly and not really get anywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Maxie. Right behind you, Robert. And then back over this corner.
Yeah, we just had a very similar conversation on the needs question. We both confessed we do not like to need help, and we're going to Google all day, YouTube all day before having to ask anyone for any help at all. And kind of came to the same thinking about comfortable words. There's so much comfort in knowing that it's okay to ask for help, and that we cannot do it on our own. And yeah, that idea, there's a lot of relief to that.
Yeah.
When you don't want to need help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's the other question?
Back here in the corner. Oh, and another too.
How would you suggest we think about shame in Lent when it comes to the ability to receive help or think of so there seems to be one version of shame that kind of alienates you further from sources of help.
Yeah. That's right.
And sometimes some of the prayers in our tradition or whatever can sort of further entrench that.
Yeah.
But then there's other versions of shame or guilt that seem like part of Lent and maybe not psychologically to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Are there resources for thinking about shame?
I think you immediately make me think about, or that question made me think about this section of the rite of reconciliation. It's commonly called confession. There's a phrase in there after There's not like a booth or anything that we do. It's meeting with a priest at the church. And after things have been talked about, the absolution that's given, the forgiveness that happens, comes in the form of a phrase. It says, God has put away your sins. God has put them away. And I think about that, and it's a really powerful phrase for me, like putting it away in a box kind of thing. And in a way that the shame kind of that is associated with that, it kind of, I don't know what it is about that phrase that helps me kind of take it out and kind of hold it and still be able to look at it. And know that, I have enough kind of shame running around as it is. I generally don't need more prayers to pile that on, or people in my life to pile that on. But that phrase in particular makes it work in my mind for whatever, about kind of taking it out, looking at it, and putting it away. And that for me is one thing. It's a good question though, because I do think that there are parts, especially depending on your church background, depending on where you're coming from, what type of church you grew up in, and the way that shame and guilt were talked about, and the expectations on doing more to get rid of the shame. I think those comfortable words are there to say that the work in many ways has been done, and has been done for a long time. And a lot of that is for us to try to get there to recognize it. And for some of us, that will be, I think it is a little bit contextual based on the person. I don't mean to punt that way, but yeah, that's where I kind of go with your question. I hope I gave you a little bit of resource there, but yeah.
I think, that's a great question. Like in Ash Wednesday, we talk about our wretchedness.
Yeah.
And there are I know some clergy that will use an alternative prayer. But my approach would be to kind of talk about what that was trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the stuff that Lent is trying to say, it's not just that and we use the word wickedness too. What that was trying to say was, it's not that we just do bad things. There seems to be something inside of us where those things keep coming from. And even if I promise today to never do those again, tomorrow I have new ideas about how to do things that hurt myself or hurt other people. And so it's old language to name that. And what we try to do here is kind of teach on that so that people know what they're saying and why they're saying it. We could probably do a better job of that. So preview the confession that we pray this Sunday will be to acknowledge it's from the 1660 prayer book that we're miserable offenders. And which means offenders, we get that yes, I have violated all kinds of laws, both moral and legal, in my driving, and all kinds of things. So I'm an offender. Miserable is a word that means something that provokes mercy and needs mercy. And so we're going to have T-shirts made with that. I'm not kidding.
Miserable offender T-shirts.
We're having miserable offender T-shirts and the money will go towards our mission outreach thing, so almsgiving, etc. But a way of reminding ourselves. I think Lent is supposed to bring us to reality, not to shame, but just to be honest.
Yeah.
And we have old language for it, so hopefully we can kind of teach around and explain it. But if we've got you a place of shame, I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. I think the whole thing, I love the thing at the beginning of Ash Wednesday where we say, if in your self-examination you find yourself really burdened by something, it says go
Yeah.
to a discreet and understanding priest and open your heart so that you may receive assurance of pardon, so that you can remove any scruple and doubt. That's the freeing
Yeah.
thing that's supposed to happen. So,
Yeah. Last question.
Yeah, my question is in regards to what you said about the prayer and how we can't help ourselves. How does that, how do you, I guess, pair that with also, for example, if you're going to therapy, you have to want to help yourself to be able to heal. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, thanks. Have a good night. I think that having the desire to help myself and actually getting there are two separate things. That's the gist of my answer, actually. I can want all I want to be better and not even get better. And I think like I would be remiss not to try to use what tools I have kind of in my arsenal to try to get there. And maybe in 10 years, or maybe in less than that, I will look back and say like, well, that therapist was bad, and I shouldn't have done, like there could be all sorts of kind of things that go along with that. But this collect and this prayer, at least, for me, kind of gives me a little bit more freedom to that when those mistakes are made, when I'm trying to help myself or trying to do the things to help myself or thinking that I can, it kind of brings me back to reality, and it lets me be more gentle with myself in my mind. It frees me to say, like, I don't totally have control, like it's this dose of reality, but also lets me be kind of gentle and kind with myself when I do think about that I can fix myself or fix my own life on my own. I don't know if that totally helps or makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've gotten texts from our children's workers, and so I think that it's, if your kids aren't here, they're with them. So thanks for coming out tonight, guys. We'll be talking about death. We'll be talking about healthy. All right. Bye. Me up. Sorry, one final thing, folks. We put some instructions on the screens here. If you have 5 minutes to grab a chair, grab anything that's on the table, put it away, help us out here, it would really